What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Strength Coach Rants. I'm your host, Connor Lyons, and this week we're going to be asking the question, what is going on in high school weight rooms?
It's all my head, now stuck in the void again.
As stated in the intro, we're going to be talking about some of the insanity that happens inside high school weight rooms. We're going to watch some clips. We're going to look at some article headlines of some fairly bad things that have happened in the weight rooms. We'll talk about, what the solutions are, how do we address this, but one of the biggest things that I want to kind of drive home with this episode is like what actually happens in these weight rooms. So 99 times out of 100, the sport coach is running the weight room stuff, especially in public schools. Now, some of these private schools have the funds to be able to hire a strength and conditioning coach, and I think that's like best case scenario. It doesn't mean all strength coaches are good, but they're at least going to be in a position where they are, certified. Most states don't have licensure. But, there's some sort of liability that falls on to them because they are experts in the field. Whereas with a sport coach, I don't know that a lot of these guys are getting in trouble when things happen in the gym, at least not to my knowledge. But, these private schools hiring strength and conditioning coaches is awesome. I know there's a couple high schools and even middle schools in the area that I live right around Tampa Bay that hire these strength and conditioning professionals to work with these kids. But that is not the majority of these cases. I want to say I did a video a couple years back, and there's something like 25,000 high schools in the country. There's not nearly that many strength coaches that are working at these schools. A lot of these schools don't even have the money to hire athletic trainers. So the odds of them hiring a strength and conditioning professional to work with these kids is very, very slim. So like I said, first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch some clips of some of these things that are going on in the weight room. I found these on TikTok, takes like 5 seconds. No idea why these kids actually post these things because they're dangerous. They're pretty bad fails. I mean, I assume it probably gets them a lot of attention, but I'd be absolutely embarrassed if some of these things were me. And this is just a taste of some of the things that go on in some of these weight rooms. This doesn't mean that this is every weight room, but this, in my experience, has been the vast majority of weight rooms, and we're going to dive into it. All right, so before we dive into some of these videos that took me all of 5 seconds to find on TikTok, we're going to watch a video of a young kid, not really young, he was up in Canada, and he got hurt in the weight room. He actually got paralyzed. So this is just kind of to show that this is a real thing and this happens. Then we're going to look at some newspaper headlines of some various things that have happened, and there's a study that I want to look at to kind of put these things into perspective of some of these things that happen at the university and the high school level. So I'm going to pull that first one up now. This young man who was training up in Canada at his university ended up breaking his spine and became paralyzed.
An Ottawa University football player suffers a tragic accident, but it didn't happen on the football field. It happened in the weight room.
KMBC 9 sports director Johnny Kane is in the newsroom now with that story. Johnny?
Yeah, Matt Bolig is a junior preparing for the upcoming football season at Ottawa. On Wednesday, he's doing a routine hamstring drill when something went terribly wrong. He was doing what's called a box step-up routine with 295 pounds of weight on his shoulders. Well, he lost his footing. All that weight came crashing down, breaking his lower back, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. Now, Matt has been at Overland Park Regional Medical Center since the accident. He'll be transferred to a hospital in Denver tomorrow. Now, he had a proper send-off today, surrounded by his family, friends.
So there's another 2 minutes or so of that video, but just wanted to drive home that was a real human being who was training in the weight room and got hurt. Now, by all accounts, there was no negligence here, just a total accident, and it's always funny to watch people who don't really understand training, talk about training. It's not like a hamstring routine. You would classify that probably as more of a lunge pattern or a push pattern, so a little bit more quad, hamstring, and glute heavy. But the kid slipped and he fell, and that almost 300 pounds came crashing down on him, and he is paralyzed. Now, you can imagine if you're at a university that has a few strength coaches on the floor and something like that can happen, what is going on at your high school where your kid is training with a football coach who doesn't really understand these things? Now, this next thing I'm going to pull up, it's going to be a couple slides of various headlines of kids dying playing their sport. So without further ado, here this is. All right, so first one's from ABC News. High school football player dies. He was the 6th one to die that summer. Now, this is during like conditioning during the summer, and that tends to happen in the hotter states, again, because a lot of these coaches don't really understand that you have to acclimatize kids. You can't just throw them into the fire. There's got to be a very slow progression into this, and a lot of these kids come into like training camp having done nothing, so they end up having heart attacks, heat stroke, things of that nature. And it's totally preventable. It's just there's not like a lot of schools don't have athletic trainers on site, but very few have strength and conditioning coaches on site to implement these things. There's another one, medical examiner reviewing the death of a Grand Ledge student. Now, that was a kid who died, I believe, in the weight room. It was during his PE class, but, again, kids are kids. Weight training is dangerous, and being with somebody who's not like a certified professional can be very dangerous. The next one's from CNN. A 14-year-old collapsed and died during football practice at a Florida high school. Sorry. It's the same thing. We're getting heat stroke and things of that nature because we don't have these certified professionals implementing these things. And instead we have football coaches who don't really understand the physiological adaptations. And the next one we're going to hop into, we got 4 more here. It's from the Courier-Journal. In wake of teen football player death, parents worry over safety and winning coach resigns. So this coach ended up quitting. I believe this was either a heat stroke or a heart attack of the kid doing conditioning. Again, like it's crazy that these things happen and they're totally preventable. Huntington Beach, teen dies after collapsing in the school weight room. Again, it's another thing. A lot of these coaches don't understand that you're going to have kids that have like sickle cell, and they're more prone to rhabdo because of that. And these things happen. There was a kid, UCF, back in like 2008. His brother played for USF. He's a running back. Blanchard was his last name. Mo was his brother that played at USF. I can't remember his name. Died at UCF. Because he had sickle cell and got rhabdo, and the strength staff didn't know. I think their family ended up getting, 7 or 8 figures as a payout because of how that went down. The next one is Seattle Times. Federal way schools to pay $5 million to family of teen who died at football practice. Again, like what are you better off doing? Paying your strength coach $50,000 a year plus benefits, or having to pay out $5 million every time a kid dies from a totally preventable death during football conditioning? The last one is it's a blog. It's not really a like a newspaper or magazine or anything, but it's from the Sports Litigation Alert, and this is very recent. There's a case examining whether football player assumes the risk of injury in the offseason when they're training with their team. Now, this could be a pretty big case because if they end up ruling in the right way, it may force the hand of these schools to do one of 2 things: either keep these kids out of the weight room and conditioning, or to actually hire professionals, which I think is the better route to go. You're going to save yourself a ton of money in the long run, and these kids are going to be much better off. This last little slide I want to go through. All right, so this was a study done in Oregon like quite a ways back, and they looked at incidents in the weight room versus how many kids. So long story short, it was about 1% of kids over the course of their 4-year college. So this was a university level, 4 years in college, could expect to get hurt in the weight room. All right. So that's not a lot. It's 1%. And these are some of the things, almost all like low back. So we've got like some heat exhaustion, upper back muscle strain, low back disc injury, low back muscle strain, low back ligament strain, spine ligament sprain, some shoulder stuff, low back spasms, lower leg fracture. That's interesting. There's only one of them, but I would be really interested to see how that happened. In addition to a hernia, I don't know that is a weight room injury. That's something that you're kind of predisposed to, and it's going to happen. Could happen in the weight room. It could happen if the guy was, moving himself to a new apartment. And torn cartilage in the knee, that's another one that's kind of baffling to me because in the weight room we can, control all of these variables. And I don't know how we end up doing that, but it happens. We had a kid at USF when I was there break his leg doing conditioning drills, like a compound fracture. His tibia was sticking out of his shin. It was pretty gross, but it was because we decided to do some conditioning on a field that was not kept very well, and there were some holes. Stepped in one, his body went one way, his leg went the other way, and he broke his leg, tib-fib fracture. Another one on here that kind of blew my mind a little bit. He had a concussion. Getting a concussion in the weight room. I've actually witnessed this happen one time at a baseball player who was really pumped up and banged his head on the bar before he went to squat, did his reps, and then had to sit down, and had a concussion. It wasn't a bad one, but he did have to stay away from training for a few days because he was a dummy and smashed his head on the bar trying to hype himself up. He got the lift, but he missed out on a few more days of training because of it. All right, so all that's just to show you that these things happen. Kids die during training, and it's totally 100% preventable. I was looking for an article of something that happened in 2017, and for the life of me, I cannot find it. But there was a young kid up in Virginia. The team was doing these you'll see these hype videos on YouTube. These not high school, college football teams will release these hype videos trying to get kids interested to come to the school of their team's training, and it's always one special training session that they don't normally train this way, but it looks cool, and it's at night, and they're out on the field instead of being in the weight room, and they hire photographers to come out and videographers to come out and take photos and videos and all that. Well, they had a log, and it's a thing where everybody has to hold the log, right? You're overhead, you're on the side, wherever it is. There's a high school that was doing this, and the team had to hold those giant logs, right? They look like telephone poles up over their head. And this kid was near the back, and he was losing his grip. And so were some of the kids around him. They just couldn't keep their arms straight anymore. And these poles weigh a significant amount of weight. He lost, let go. And so did the kids in front of him. And it came down on his head and it killed him. So again, these mental toughness things, they don't pan out. None of the data suggests or supports that it's beneficial at all. But we keep doing it because we have football coaches and some strength coaches who are dummies, still knuckle dragging and doing these things that we know don't work anymore. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into some clips of some things that happen in the weight room. And again, it is my contention that this is pretty common. I hear stories of kids that come into my gym talking about things that happened at their school's gym during training, and we're going to hop into that next. All right, so now we're going to hop into some of these videos that kids are freely posting online of some of the things that happen in these weight rooms. Now, I'm going to show you some things that are very bad, all right? And I'm going to show you some things that are not as bad but could be a lot better. All right, I'm not sure, if any of these kids were actually injured. I would assume since they all got posted online that everybody was okay. And I wouldn't post them had these kids not kind of done it on their own. I'm not a big fan of kind of putting people out there unless they decide that they're going to put themselves out there. So this first one, and we got about 12 of them, so bear with me a little bit here. It's going to be of a kid on the bench. All right, so you can see this is a typical high school weight room here. This is exactly what every video that comes out of them looks like when somebody's benching. There is a crowd surrounded around them, and then, some kids hyped up, and we'll see the outcome here. All right, so what happened there? Couple things. That's way too much weight on the bar. This kid's not capable of doing this, I would assume. I can't see exactly what's on the bar. There's probably a 45 and a 25. Kid looks like maybe 185 would be a little bit of trouble for him. There are no collars on this, all right, on the sides. So as he goes to go up, it bails all the way off on one side because he can't get it, and then boop, comes back the other way. That kid's spotting is lucky that bar didn't hit him in the head. But again, this is just some of the safety stuff that kind of gets overlooked when you don't have strength coaches in the gym. All right, next one we're going to look at also the bench. There we go. Okay, kid grinded out a rep. Not bad. All right, clearly should not have gone for a second rep. Okay, and that's the issue here. We've got a kid spotting him. We've got, again, same thing, big group of people surrounding him. goes up, grinds out a rep. It's not a pretty rep, but it's a rep. He finishes it. That should have gone right back in the hooks. And if there was a coach there, a strength coach there, one of two things would have happened. He either would have been on that bar while that kid was going to press that second rack, that second rep, or he would have just pulled it back in. All right, so here it is again. Good. Butts up off the bench there. And then comes up, and then boom, and ends up dropping it on his stomach. So that is, again, not a good thing to have happened. You can see if you're watching. If you're not watching, I'll do my best to explain. The kid looks pretty surprised. The weight is all the way down near his belly button, that bar is, and he's benching. So not a good position to be in. Very preventable if you have somebody who knows what they're doing in the gym with these kids. All right, next one we're going to look at is a clean. All right, so the clean is one of my least favorite exercises, especially when it comes to athletes, because it is a hard movement. There are people who do this like for a living at the Olympic level who are still not like incredibly like proficient when it comes to like max numbers. And so to think that we're going to teach some football players how to do this so we're going to teach them to play another sport so they can get better at their sport kind of blows my mind. All right, but here's a little bit longer of a clip, so I'll let it go here. Couple things. This kid is he has straps on. He deadlifts the weight up, walks back with it in a horrible position. Good. And then he eats it. All right. So I'm going to rewind a little bit here. All right. The first worst part of this, right, is he picks this weight up and walks it back about 5 feet. There's no need for that. Roll the weight back and pick it up that way. Secondly, you can't see this from the side. All right, but that looks like he's probably not in the best position there. He's kind of up on his toes. His back is more than likely round. Not a great position. All right, he gets it up, standing with it. This first thing, that little kind of thrust, all right, that is not part of the clean. You're not trying to get the bar away from you. That bar pass should be straight up and down, but nobody's taught this kid how to lift. And again, that is entirely too much weight for this kid. He needs to scale back and kind of learn how to do it. When he comes up for that first rep, all right, I don't know if he was trying to like prime himself for the second one, but he only brings it up to about his belly button, and then he goes again, and his catch, his feet are way too far apart, his knees are in, he is way overextended in his back, and this is a very dangerous position to be in. So again, boom, he got lucky that bar went forward, especially because he's wearing those straps. It's not easy to dump a bar when you've got straps on, but luckily that bar did not come down on his neck because it very easily could have. Whew. All right, next one. Another clean.
Just because you see it doesn't mean try.
All right, so this dude's off in the distance. This looks like it could actually be at a college here because the kids look a little bit older. But we'll go ahead and watch. Again, the clean's not a very great exercise for most athletes. It's just not something that they're well versed in, and it's very hard to do. It comes up, boom, eats it, and backwards. Right? So I don't know how you prevent that outside of maybe having that kid understand how to perform the lift a little bit better. You watch the bar path is right there, actually pretty good, but you can see in the very top part of your screen here, if you're watching, like he never, well, I guess he did extend, but then this weird position that he gets into where he brings his heels to his butt, right now he lands on his toes, he's going to shift back, and that's where the issue is. Nobody's taught this kid how to do this movement because there isn't a strength and conditioning coach there. All right, we're going to go one more clean here, and then we're going to move on to another movement. All right, anytime it starts off like this, it's not going to be good. The caption says, wait for the end, and... And boom. Okay. So same kind of thing that happened in that other video. He kind of gets the way up. He's got a few things. He's too far away from the bar. When he goes to pick it up, his butt is way too high. His chest isn't big enough. There was no way he was going to get this weight. It's too much weight for him. Whew, that's a bad position. You can't, if you're not watching, he's up on his toes. His shins are almost parallel to the ground, and he looks like he's about to be bent in half backwards. I don't know, he kind of bailed on it a little bit. He got lucky he was able to push that bar away because, again, that could have landed on his throat, and it happens. All right, next one, we're going to do a deadlift. This one is more positioning than anything else. If you're watching, it looks like cat scratch fever right here. Nobody's taught this kid how to do the movement. It looks like there is 315 pounds on the bar. If those are 45-pound bumpers, probably a little bit too heavy for him. But this is very typical of what goes on in a high school weight room. It's not atypical at all. So his butt's way up in the air. He's super forward rounded. He's got a very slight bend in his knee, but he almost gets it up. You can see there's a kid behind him that is kind of pointing out that his back is in a bad position. But we'll watch that one more time. Again, this isn't atypical. I see videos of kids deadlifting like this all the time, and you're asking for issues. This is when I said in that other episode when I was kind of going off about conditioning and training, this is what I mean when I say something is not better than nothing. You would be better off doing nothing if this is what we're getting in the weight room here. All right, now we're going to move on to a couple squats here.
When your quarterback can...
All right, so this one, you can tell there's not a coach around. There's entirely too much weight on that bar. This kid can't weigh more than 145 pounds, and he has 315 pounds on the bar. He's shaking as he's walking it out. The pins are not set up at all. So if the spotter doesn't know what he's doing, this kid could get seriously hurt. We saw at the end of the summer, God, what's that bodybuilder's name that broke his neck? Very proficient in the movement, just was set up without the safety straps and broke his neck, and he died. You know, a guy who lifts weights for a living died. So you can imagine, like, these high school kids, how dangerous this can be. So we'll watch this. He gets the lift. It's just not a good one.
With the big dogs.
Wait. Come on.
All right, so he is way too tall. He's up on his toes. He's got his knees out, so someone's cued him to do that at least. But he's just, you can tell this is not a comfortable weight. He's not rigid in his spine because I feel like maybe if he was, it might break. But gets to the bottom, and then, God. Whew. So again, this is not atypical. This happens a lot in high school weight rooms. And the caption says he's going to cry in the car. He might. He's probably a little bit hurt. All right, next one's another squat.
And here he is again.
This one's just funny. The strength coach who has an account on TikTok walked into the weight room and saw a kid with a mat on his back with a very weirdly loaded bar, totally mismatched on both sides. I think it's the same weight, but the kid just had a bunch of 10s on one side and 25s on the other side. And he's wearing this mat like a cape because he doesn't have, I guess, a pad to put on the bar, and it was hurting his shoulders. So he put a mat on his back, and he's wearing it like a cape. Not a good lift, though. He is not getting great depth. He's got a pretty big shift. I think maybe this coach should have... God, those weights are crazy. Probably shouldn't have videoed this, and maybe should have stopped the kid. Again, this is what we're dealing with when we talk about what's happening in the weight rooms in high schools. All right, so another squat. We got two more squats, and then we're going to show you a couple good examples. All right, so high school weights class, right? So this is a weightlifting class, which is typically run by like a PE teacher or somebody who used to lift weights. And you can see this is not a great lift here. Gets good depth. So what I'm going to say here is those safety pens are not set up nearly high enough. This looks like it's a max attempt for this kid, and they're set up below his knees. So those safety pins aren't going to save you. But what he does is he puts his hands on them and pushes himself up and is able to get back up. This could have been disastrous.
Another night.
Very lucky. Day. Oh, God. The other sad thing, right? Those two people rushed in to help spot. Where the hell were they 5 seconds ago when that kid was in the bottom? They got there right when he got up to the top. We'll watch this one more time. Doesn't get depth. He breaks, arms down. That bar's sitting on his neck. I wouldn't be surprised if this kid didn't end up with a shoveller's fracture there. Just, again, more insanity. I got one more squat here. All right, so this one's not bad. He's doing quarter squats. Yeah, he's got some spotters around him. One of the spotters is wearing jeans. It's a little weird to me. But he's, in a good position, doing some quarter squats. There's some merit to quarter squats. So, this could go either way. But just not in a great position. He's very tall. His knees are jutting super far forward. But again, that's just like when we don't have anybody watching these kids, and it happens a lot of times when football coaches are the ones in the room. You got an entire football team of 40 to 50 kids, and you got 2 or 3 football coaches. There's going to be a lot of movement discrepancy that gets overlooked. It just happens, especially when there's not like a plan for these kids. They're not like, we're working at this percentage today for this amount of reps. It's like, let's put some weight on the bar and do it. Doesn't work that way. All right, so these next two, all right, these are going to be like not bad lifts, but things that should have been done a lot better. All right, so this kid is stupid strong. He's a 435-pound front squat. He's graduating in 2025, so this would make him a junior right now. This kid's strong, period. But it's set up. His spotter is in front of him, and he's going to be grabbing his elbows, keeping them up. All right. So we've got a coach there. Coach is back there. Not bad. But this kid being in the front is incredibly dangerous. If he loses that bar, it's going forward and it's landing right on that kid. Luckily, he's strong though. Good. I mean, that moved. That kid is stupid strong. But that kid should not be in front of him. The spotter should not be in front pushing his elbows up because, again, it's just you're asking for trouble. You just are. All right, we got one more here. And this kid is strong too. This is a stupid heavy squat of 615 for a single. All right, but this is a 615. This is more than likely a near max attempt for this kid. And he's got a player spotting him. All right, I'll let it roll and then we'll talk about it. Grinds out that rep. Not a bad rep. He's a little tall. He's pretty wide with his feet. Somebody could probably go in there, clean that up, maybe take 100 pounds off the bar, and he'd be an excellent position and it'd still be a ton of weight. But we've got a teammate spotting him with 615 pounds on his back. Granted, the safety pins are up, but they're not up high enough. They probably should have been up like another peg or two. We'll watch this one more time. It's under the bar. Got super wide stance. Good. And that kid's like hugging him. He's in there. He's not doing a bad job spotting. But if I'm in charge of that weight room, I'm probably making sure I'm the one behind that kid at 615 pounds. So there you have it. That's a couple things that go on in the weight room. That's not all that out of the ordinary. These are the kinds of things that go on every day in high school weight rooms. And it's a wonder that there aren't more kids hurt, to be completely frank here. And if you're thinking that's not what happens at your weight room, that you'd probably be lying to yourself because it happens quite frequently. I worked with a high school team here, a very prominent high school program down here in Tampa a couple years back. I say a couple years back, man. That's probably going on a decade now. But the things that they did in the weight room were absolute insanity. This team was like top 10 in the country every year. The quote-unquote national champs. I don't know how you decide that in high school football. But the things they were doing in the weight room, like it boggles the mind that these kids didn't get more hurt. And I would bet money that 5, 6, 7 years down the road, a lot of those kids are dealing with some overuse stuff, whether it's some issues with their back, some issues with their knees, their hips, total knees, total hips, sponding in the spine, things like that. I wouldn't doubt that definitely happened to a lot of them. So this happens at the best of high schools, happens at the worst of high schools, and it's just something that we should all be aware of. Next thing we're going to talk about is how do we fix this? What do we do? All right, so now we know what the problem is, right? How do we fix it? How do we find the solution? Well, the sad fact of the matter is that most of these schools are government-run schools, right? And government tends to be reactionary instead of proactive, and that's an issue because what's going to end up happening somewhere down the road, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen. Some kid is going to sue a school district and come out with, they're going to clean house. They may bankrupt the entire school district, and it's going to be based on findings that a lot of the overuse stuff that they have is in relation to what happened when he was in high school, right? So I did an episode about concussions a while back, and the sad fact of what happens at the NFL, right, where they're having to pay out all this money for concussions. Most of the issues that these guys are dealing with did not happen at the NFL level. They happened in Pop Warner. They happened in high school. They happened in college. And it just so happened to not rear its ugly head until they were well into adulthood and retired from the game. So a lot of these overuse things, everybody's got a friend who played football in high school who, like, their knee doesn't work quite right, or, maybe they've got a back issue or something like that. And like that, someone is going to figure out, some smart lawyer is going to figure out how to sue a school district, and it's going to be in game here, right? So what these school districts need to do is get out in front of this. They need to do one of three things. All right, one, hire strength coaches, right? The money's not there. Sure, I get it. But are you better off paying $5, $10, $15, $20 million every time some kid gets hurt or dies? Or are you better off paying somebody $50,000 to $75,000 a year to be the strength and conditioning coach? And in addition to some other things, it will help your teams on the field. So in addition to keeping these kids safe, it will make them better, right? So win-win. You save a ton of money, right? Because extrapolate that out over the course of however many years. Like, let's say there's 20 high schools in a school district. You're paying somebody $50K. That's $1 million a year. You could do that for 20 years before sniffing what you might have to pay out if some kid gets hurt or dies in the gym and the lawyer comes knocking for cash. All right, so that's scenario one. Scenario two, do away with training at school, period. If you don't have somebody to supervise it who is knowledgeable and a professional, don't do it. You shouldn't be. Like, it is, I said earlier, and I'll say it again and again and again, doing something is not better than doing nothing when it comes to these things. The likelihood of injury, what you're doing to these kids long term into their adulthood with a lot of these overuse things, they won't show up for 5 or 6 years, but they'll show up. And then now you've got somebody who's dealing with pain for the rest of their life, or not moving properly for the rest of their life because of something that happened in the high school weight room when they were playing JV football, right? Or it may turn out they need a total knee. It's going to cost them $100,000 front to back. So, again, that's option two, is just to don't do anything. Option three is to find local strength and conditioning professionals and allow them to teach these coaches what needs to be done, all right? Now, they're not going to have every bit of knowledge that they're going to need, but they can get the gist of what they should be doing with these kids and have some guidelines. You can create guidelines for, like what these kids are allowed to do and not allowed to do. You can teach them, how to weight train the positions to be in, how to do things, what good looks like, and what bad looks like. Things of that nature. And you could have it like once a year, these coaches, if they want to coach at the high school level, have to keep up with these CEUs. And that costs you maybe like $1,000 a year to hire a strength coach to come out and give, a 4-hour, what do they call them? Like in service for all the coaches, or, maybe a few, because there's probably a ton of coaches. But, to teach them, right? That's your other option. And that is a very cost-effective one that can be done very easily, because all of these cities, all of these places have strength and conditioning facilities much like mine. They're not all great, but they, at least most of them, will understand what you should not be doing with your athletes if you don't want them to get hurt. So those are your options. One, hire strength coaches. Best option, right? Option two, stop doing it, right? Not a great option, but a better option than what's happening right now. Option three, hire strength coaches to do in-services for coaches throughout the year so that they can understand like what is acceptable and what is not, and just have the basics of like order of operations. Do this first, do this second, do this third, do this last, right? And that will keep kids from getting hurt both in the short term and in the long term. All right, so again, I don't think any of this is ever going to happen. I think it's going to take a giant lawsuit to come down on some of these schools, and I don't think it's going to be coming from weight room things, because for some reason we just assume that that's part of it, when in reality it's not. It's going to come from some kid dying on the field during conditioning, and it happens. And it seems to be happening more recently. So keep an eye on it. The government's great at being reactive, and that's probably how they'll handle it. They'll try to do something after the fact. So that's going to be it for today. All right. So to answer the question, what is going on in our weight rooms? nothing good. Nothing good. But thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. I'll link a couple things in the description here, some articles and things like that. And if you have any questions, or you're a coach that wants to understand things better, feel free to reach out. My contact info will be in the description as well. And have a good rest of your week.